Restoring the skin barrier. There are a variety of circumstances in your life where you might be asking this question, and don't worry, there are many products available to do such a thing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about one of my favorites from Avene, their Cicalfate Plus Restorative Protective Cream. Now, I have used myself this product and recommended it in various videos, but recently they sent me this larger tube. And today I'm going to be talking about this, but I'm going to be comparing it to another product that I also frequently recommend. It's very similar, called the Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm. We're going to talk a little bit later on in this video about how the two products compare, contrast, the differences in their ingredients. But first of all, when would you want to use a product like this for restoring the skin barrier? Avene claims there are 45 uses for this product. Doesn't surprise me. Let's just talk about 13. So you can have an impaired skin barrier secondary to many actual possible reasons, but let's just say, for example, you recently had some sort of procedure, whether it be a procedure that required an incision and then the surgeon closed the skin together with stitches, or a procedure like a laser treatment, resurfacing laser, for example, that left the skin barrier well impaired. You developed some dryness, flaking, peeling. Maybe you had a chemical peel that caused a lot of peeling and flaking. Those are signs of an impaired barrier or the skin barrier trying to recover, and using a protective barrier cream, which is what this is and the Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm is, using a barrier cream can certainly help protect that healing skin from external aggressors that would further compromise healing, potentially allow for entry of bacteria and things that would lead to an infection in that compromised skin. Also reduces the frictional forces on healing skin that would otherwise lead to slowed down and impaired healing and scar formation. The other reason to use a product like this is if you tend to get patches of localized skin dryness. A lot of patients with atopic dermatitis, for example, will deal with patches of stubborn dryness, maybe on the cheeks or the elbows, the knees, really stubborn areas. It seems like just your body lotion is not quite enough. This is a bit more occlusive, protective, and may just be what is needed to get that area of skin over the hump, recover the barrier, and allow for restoration of good moisture content levels. This is a product that your young children, babies, might be interested in, or you, I should say, might be interested in applying on them in certain circumstances. For example, young children often develop a type of perioral dermatitis, basically a rash around the mouth, oftentimes around the time that they start teething, if they're drooling a lot, or if they've been using a pacifier, because essentially they get trapping of moisture on the skin there, and maybe some abrasion, or some food residue gets around their mouth. All of that is irritating over time to the skin, and their skin is still immature and more vulnerable, I should say, to irritation. They develop a frank perioral, meaning around the mouth, dermatitis, and a barrier cream is a game changer for getting that to clear up and heal, to protect the skin from irritants and moisture, saliva, food that would further aggravate it. Also, in young babies, this is a great diaper rash cream. A bit expensive to be using that way, but certainly an effective diaper rash cream. And then those of us who like to use actives in our skincare routine, like an alpha hydroxy acid or salicylic acid, or maybe you're new to starting tretinoin and you've developed some dryness and peeling as a side effect of those actives, this would be a great way to spot remedy those areas of the face that have been aggravated by those actives. For example, the cheeks commonly will get very red and sensitive if you are using a new active ingredient that enhances the rate of cell turnover and exfoliates the skin, and that might lead to heightened sensitivity, allowing for more penetration of irritants into the skin. This can certainly help. Maybe you have some localized skin discomfort, itch. Applying a nice barrier cream can help to silence that by really aggressively reducing transepidermal water loss from the skin, and it really helps to soothe those itch signals and discomfort signals. Maybe you've got a cut or a scrape. Wash it out with just a little bit of dilute soapy water, pat the skin dry, and then you could apply a barrier cream like this to help facilitate healing and recovery and to protect the vulnerable area from microbes getting in, dirt, pollens, aeroallergens from getting onto that vulnerable vulnerable area and further slowing down the healing process. Plus, a key aspect of good wound healing is actually keeping the underlying wound bed moist and protected to allow for the cells to properly migrate in and all of the healing to ensue. Maybe you overdid it outdoors, you got too much sun, and you're looking for something to put on to your damaged skin. Maybe you got a sunburn, okay? A sunburn, your skin barrier is very damaged, more vulnerable to irritating stuff getting in. The last thing you want to do is to put, like a strong scented lotion on. You really do need a barrier cream. It is like a wound at this point. This would be a great option for after sun care. You can use this to the entire face as a daily moisturizer if you are so motivated. There's nothing about this or the Cicaplast Balm for that matter that is pore clogging or a confirmed acne trigger. You can use this on the face if you have acne. In fact, you might find it to be very helpful in your acne journey because people with acne have an impaired skin barrier. Let's talk about the skin folds under the arms, in between the inner thighs. These are areas that are vulnerable to chafing. Using a good barrier cream in those areas cuts down on friction that leads to chafing. Maybe you're a runner and you tend to get raw, red, and rashy under the arms. That would be a great situation to prevent that or to help heal it up if you've already developed it. Post-shave irritation, razor burn. That is an impaired skin barrier, and you'll notice if you ever develop that you are very sensitive to things that come in contact with the skin. It's very uncomfortable. This would be excellent to use in that situation. Speaking of shaving, other hair removal techniques, waxing, plucking, sugaring, threading, all can cause a little dermatitis after the fact, and irritation, redness. This really helps to soothe that skin and allow that to recover more efficiently. All right, so those are about 13 reasons why you might want to use a barrier cream such as this. Is this the best one out there? In my opinion, it's one of the best. It's a very good product. It contains zinc and copper complex, which facilitates healing, and it also contains, per Avene kind of signature, I should say, thermal spring water. It contains a compound from an aquatic bacteria that has been shown, at least in cells in a dish, to help calm down inflammation and healing. It is a mineral oil-based skin protectant, so it's nice and occlusive, it's very rich, it's free of fragrance, and it works. It works well. The Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm, on the other hand, very similar as far as performance, texture, and feel. Let's do a little side-by-side texture comparison here. This is the Avene Cicalfate Plus. There's a Cicaplast. You can see the Cicaplast has a little bit more of a gloss to it. Now let's rub them in. See how the Cicaplast is like pretty glossy? Whereas this is more, still glossy, but there's not as much shine there. All right, there's Cicaplast rubbed in. And there's Cicalfate rubbed in. Cicaplast, Cicalfate. Cicaplast, Cicalfate. They look pretty similar, but this feels more wet. Although the Cicaplast Balm, in my experience, is a bit less greasy in feel. Cicaplast Balm contains glycerin, dimethicone, a skin protectant, and therefore those ingredients help to reduce water loss and hydrate the skin. It also, in contrast to the Avene Cicalfate product, contains madecassoside, which comes from centella, is anti-inflammatory and may help in the healing process. Like Avene, there is thermal spring water in the La Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm. Check out my video all about thermal spring water. I do a deep dive there as to, some of the claims around it. Also in the La Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm, you've got the zinc, you've got the copper, which are good for healing and recovery. La Roche Posay Cicaplast Balm also has panthenol, a B vitamin that's very moisturizing. There's no panthenol in the Avene product. So those are some ingredient differences, but in my personal experience, they perform very similarly, and they both are excellent options in these situations. Now, I often will recommend, rather than use these, to also consider, in pretty much all of these situations, consider just 100% petroleum jelly, aka Vaseline. Also is a skin protectant, excellent for barrier recovery. However, some people don't like the greasy feel of petroleum jelly on their face, on these areas, and they do better with a barrier balm. And these barrier balms that we've just covered, they do have ingredients in them that directly are soothing, anti-inflammatory, and may help your cause out above and beyond plain petroleum jelly. Now, while they both perform the same, they're both great products, okay? One interesting thing I discovered in preparing to film this video is that a lot of people have found that their Avene Cicalfate Plus protective cream, when they get it, the product has completely separated and they get this blue liquid that shoots out when they first get the product. Now, from what I can tell, this seems to be mostly a problem that people report if their product in shipping has gotten too cold. Maybe they live somewhere, it's winter time, which is a time, as a side note, where you might be wanting to use this, say for windburn, another great use I didn't mention. A lot of people, you can find TikToks of people saying on their website, the customer reviews, full of reports of what the heck is going on with this separation. Seems to be an issue that people mostly encounter when the product has gotten too cold, as I said, and they do warn that don't expose the product to a temperature below 5 degrees Celsius, 41 degrees Fahrenheit, but we have no control of product exposures during shipping. So I thought that was interesting. I have never encountered that myself. I've never owned a tube this size, this 3.3 ounce tube. This is another common denominator I noticed amongst people who were experiencing the separation, the cold temperature and this larger packaging. Didn't see as many people talking about it with the smaller tube. So I don't know if that is a factor. Mine is not separated, but I live in a swamp, so definitely not cold here. I've never experienced that with this product in the smaller tubes that I've used in the past. But I wanted to warn you guys about that because this is not inexpensive. It's like $40 for this. To pay $40 and then have the product arrive completely separated out, in my opinion, is unacceptable. I really think that they should address that, correct whatever issue is causing this to separate out so readily. Now, on TikTok, you will encounter people who have discovered that by massaging their tube around, they're able to remix. But what a nuisance that is. Not to mention, if you don't realize it's happened, you open it and a bunch of the liquid shoots out. Is the product really the same when you mix it up, now that it's lost that component? Is it the thermal spring water shooting out, which maybe has some soothing and anti-inflammatory effects? So I think that's really interesting, and I hope that they maybe address it with some sort of emulsifier. I'm not a cosmetic chemist, as I point out in many of my videos when we get to these nitty-gritty formulation details, so I don't really know why that is a thing, but I feel as though for the price point the customer is paying, they shouldn't have to, mix it. That should not happen, in my opinion. It's never happened to me, but I've seen enough video evidence online of it happening to people that I believe them. And so, yeah, I've never encountered that with this, but I've also never encountered it with the Cicaplast Balm either. So that's just a little something too. If you live somewhere cold, or it gets cold where you are, I don't know, maybe this isn't the best choice then, unless they fix that situation. Now, the people who that was happening to, many of them did say that they reached out and Avene refunded their money, which I think they should, because like I said, that's unacceptable. I mean, diaper rash cream doesn't do that. Diaper rash cream is kind of like this, okay? This has some fancier ingredients, but the premise of the product is the same. Diaper rash cream doesn't do that. Yeah, it's unusual. So that's something I would warn you about before at least investing in this large bottle, is that if you live somewhere cold, you might want to reconsider. And I would say Cicaplast Balm for sure. At the end of the day, provided it's not separated out, they both perform the same, and either would be a great option in any of these circumstances. Now, Roche Posay also has a Cicaplast gel gel skin protectant, which we didn't talk about today. But on the end slate, I'm going to put my video reviewing that product, talking about how I use it and comparing it to one of its competitors. So check that one out next if you missed it. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.